heroic martyr and visionary madman and terrorist. He was warned that this was a suicide mission. Frederick Douglass, the most important leader of the movement for African American civil rights in the 19th century, warned him, saying, "You will never get out alive." Abolitionist John Brown still charged on anyway. After all, he believed combating slavery in the United States was his sacred obligation, one he saw through to his death and years after he was gone. On October 16, 1859, John Brown, with 18 men, led a raid on the Federal Armory in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, with the intent of starting a slave liberation that would spread south. He intended to arm slaves in the area with weapons from the arsenal for them to join his army, which would then free all the slaves in the South. As the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Only a few slaves joined his army. A quote from Reverend Charles White's 1859 eyewitness account of the raid reads, "These men were passing 2 or 3 at a time all the morning just in front of us. They could have been easily killed if we had had guns." Without a detailed plan, John Brown's raid fell through, and quickly. By the afternoon of October 17th, they were surrounded by local militia. By the morning of October 18th, they were captured by Marines under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee, who later became the Confederate military general, and whose efforts were crucial in restoring peace following the war. 7 people died, and 10 or more were injured. Brown was tried for treason against the Commonwealth of Virginia, the murder of 5 men, and inciting a slave insurrection. He was found guilty of all charges and was hanged on December 2nd, 1859. Notably, he was the first person executed for treason in the history of the United States, with the raid on Harper's Ferry being called the dress rehearsal for the 1861 American Civil War. John Brown was an evangelical Christian whose abolitionist passion grew out of deep Puritan convictions. Believing he was an instrument of God destined to strike slavery's death blow, Brown saw abolition as both a moral and spiritual duty. He often said that the Golden Rule and the Declaration of Independence's statement that all men are created equal meant the same thing, linking his religious beliefs with America's founding ideals. After decades of peaceful reform had failed, he came to believe that only direct action, violent if necessary, could destroy slavery. Frustrated with talk but little progress, Brown declared, "These men are all talk. What we need is action. Action!" Determined to act, he planned a raid to seize the Federal Armory at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, as a first step in sparking a slave uprising. Brown sought allies among prominent black abolitionists, including Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, whom he had met years earlier in Springfield, Massachusetts. Tubman fell ill and could not join, while Douglass refused, warning that the plan was suicidal. Still, Brown pressed on, recruiting men like the formerly enslaved Shields Green, who declared, "I believe I will go with the old man." Brown was faith-driven and willing to sacrifice everything for emancipation. This would make him one of the most controversial and transformative figures of the abolitionist movement. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry became one of the most explosive moments in the age of abolition, transforming the national debate over slavery. Northern abolitionists hailed Brown as a martyr who sacrificed his life for the freedom of enslaved people, with writers like Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson praising his courage and conviction. Meanwhile, Southerners viewed the raid as proof that abolitionists had turned to terrorism, fueling fears of violent uprisings. The event forced Americans to confront the question of whether slavery could ever end peacefully. By taking direct action, Brown embodied the frustration of abolitionists who believed that moral persuasion had failed. His raid and his dignified conduct at trial stimulated the North's anti-slavery sentiment and made further compromise impossible, marking a decisive step toward the Civil War. John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry stands as a turning point in American history, a moral and political earthquake that exposed the deep fractures in the nation's conscience. Whether viewed as a heroic martyr or a fanatical terrorist, Brown forced the country to face the brutality of slavery and the moral cost of inaction. His execution did not silence the abolitionist movement. Instead, his final words and steadfast faith transformed him into a symbol of moral defiance. Within 2 years, the country was at war, a war that would achieve what Brown had died trying to start. His life and death revealed that the struggle for justice often begins with those willing to act when others will not.